What is up, everybody? On today's show, we're going to learn how to design websites in 3 easy steps. It can be done, I don't know. But Ron Segall is the man who's going to show us how to do this. You may know him from his amazing YouTube channel called Flux. Ron Segall, welcome back to the show.
Yeah!
So awesome to be back on the show. Yeah.
Look at you with your fancy camera setup. Yes, it's been a minute. It's been a hot minute.
It's upgraded.
Okay.
Nice. Yeah. Trying to pimp up my live streaming setup.
You're going to outdo us right now, so the game is on. Okay, so without further ado, let's just get right into it. Web design, graphic designers, why do you need to do it? Are you leaving money on the table when you're not doing the web design? Ron, take it away.
All right. So I've been talking with so many designers lately, like even freelance designers, but both agencies, especially, graphic designers that are doing branding and all types of design. And a lot of them I found out are not designing websites, which is just like so weird to me.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. It's like, imagine you're going into a restaurant, then you ask the dessert, and then they're like, oh, go to a restaurant across the street. It just doesn't make any sense. I mean, everybody, every client, entrepreneur, business owner who comes to you and needs a brand, obviously the next phase is going to need a website. It just doesn't make any sense not to offer a website as a designer. And I've just realized, just from talking to other designers, that a lot of them just find it intimidating. They think it's so complicated with everything that they have to take. They hear all these like crazy terms like UX and UI, and they're just like blown away at how complicated it is. And so I'm here to share with you like how to think about this to really, really simplify, because I want more designers to build a website. Because here's the thing, everybody's now talking about UX and UI, and it's all like the rage. But and product design, how to design whatever apps and dashboards. But when you think about it, like there's so many, like there's few companies that need product, like digital product design and whatever, dashboards, apps, those type of things.
Right.
So it's kind of like a pyramid, because every business in the world ends up needing just a website. So there's just like crazy demand to it, and nobody talks about this or teaches this. And so Matthew, I was talking to Matthew, and he kind of challenged me. He was like, can you bring to the show and kind of cover like 5 to 10 steps on how designers can get started thinking about this? And I was like thinking about this, and I was like, okay, let me do it in 3 weeks.
Wow.
Where simple is better, right?
Right.
Where were you when I started designing, man? 3 steps? That sounds awesome.
Yeah, it's kind of like, let's go through it. I've prepared a presentation, so
Okay.
let's
get
go
into
through
it. Are you saying,
Are we good?
hold on?
Yes.
What's wrong?
Forgot to add audio on that one.
Okay, hold on. Take it back to the beginning of this. What is web design?
Whoop, whoop.
There we go.
Okay.
Yes.
Are you ready?
Yep. Hold
Can
on.
you hear
hold
me
on.
well?
There we go.
There we
Yeah.
go. Okay, go ahead.
All right. So basically, what is web design, right? So basically, it's content. There's some text. There's some thing like a story that you want to convey. There's creative direction, which is how you visually present this. How do you make it appealing? How do you make it pretty? And then there's technology, like how is this implemented into a website? Like how is this literally built? And this is basically web design. But I actually think, like, if you think about this, I actually think this is true for every design. Because if you take anything, like let's think about package design. So if you're, I've seen your show right now, you're doing like packaging for beer. So obviously there's content, there's need to be whatever ingredients, the name of the company, what's inside. There's the design of it. How does that look? And there's the technology, right? It needs to be printed in a certain way where you have kind of technological constraints, right? If you're doing book design, then it's going to need to be printed on a paper, on a certain size, from a certain material. So in every design that we implement in the world, there is some certain technology involved. And it's just, the web is just a different technology. So basically, I think this is the framework to think about any design. But if you go through these steps, which I'll try to break down to you right now, basically you'll be able to figure out how to build websites relatively easy, I think. Please get started. So let's go through them like one by one. Basically, it's 3 steps. So first one is content, right? So basically, these are some questions that we need to ask ourselves when we get like a website project. So first one is, what is the goal? What are we trying to do here? And this is very similar to what you cover in, discovery sessions or strategy session, whatever you want to call this. This is also super true for any website project. You need to know, who are you doing this for? Who's the customer? Why are we even doing this?
Right.
And for a website, there can be all types of, things that you might want to achieve or your client, such as, getting more leads or selling something actually on the website or educating people or getting engagement. And you need to understand this, because if you don't understand this, you don't know what call to action to put in. Now I think so many people don't understand this. I've been going through a lot of, designers' portfolios, which are basically websites. And there's simply no call to action. It's like they didn't even think what I'm trying to accomplish with this website. Obviously, they're trying to get clients to call them, but they didn't even make it easier on me. They like putting their, a big call to action, contact me, or here's my contact detail. So you need to straight up first understand, what are you trying to do here? Like, what's the call to action? What are we trying to accomplish with this website? Now that you have this, you can ask yourself the question, all right, so what's the story here, right? So most people leave websites, like most, when I say most, I mean more than 85%, leave every website in less than 15 seconds. This is kind of like, most people don't understand this, but if you ever opened up any analytics software, you'll be blown away to understand that most people left your website in less than 15 seconds. So that you really need to be very, very clear and answer the question. In less than 15 minutes, you have to answer the question, what is this website? Who's this website? What are they doing? And what's in it for me? And if you don't answer this really quickly, people are going to leave. So you need to understand, what is the story? How do I answer these questions? Now, some helpful frameworks to tell stories. A couple that I use is, first one is called Story Brand, which is a book that you can get. Basically, it breaks down how every story in the world works. So it's something like, there's a hero, they have a problem, they meet some kind of a guide. That guide gives them a plan, and then they go through this process, and then they solve the problem. And this framework actually explains that this is how you can build most brands' story according to that framework, and that really helps you create a story for your own website or for your client's website. That's really, really simple. Another popular framework is the Why, How, What, that was popularized by Simon Sinek, I think he's called, which is basically answering like why this company exists and how are you doing what you're doing and what do you actually do. So these are frameworks to kind of understand what is the story that you're trying to say. And that story helps you, together with your client or with a content writer, to write the content, write the story of this website. And again, that can be applied to all pages, like it's a long story. Every story can be very long, told like in a very long form and a very short form. So this story has to work within 15 seconds. First 15 seconds, you need to get a snippet of that story. And then very long form. So, let's say Star Wars, right? I can say it very shortly, like a guy, his cousins got killed. He met a Jedi. He destroys the evil forces, right? I told that in like 10 seconds. And also you can watch a 3-hour movie about this. So when you have kind of a story, you can stretch it and expand or tell it very shortly. Now, one thing about this is that words are important. I mean, copywriting is important. I know that we are designers are very much like to focus on the visuals, but when it comes to the web and in general, I think in advertising and in anything, words are very important. So you need to learn how to tell the stories, both visually, but also in the words. And I personally think that designers can really benefit from learning how to write also, besides doing the actual design. So now you have the story. Basically, now you need to structure it, right? Now, in the web, you tell stories very similar to how you tell stories in other formats, right? So in a book, you tell the story. Every page is the next step in the story. So you have page 1, then you have page 2, page 3, and that's how you structure the story. If you're doing a presentation, then you have obviously slide 1, 2, 3. when it comes to website, you basically have sections, right? So you have the top section, then you scroll down, you get to the second section, you scroll down. So basically scrolling a page is basically like turning a page. And that's how you tell the story. So you tell the story section after section. And you can think about different pages in the website, like different chapters in the book. So that's how you need to basically structure the content on a page. And one thing I want to say about structuring the content, we designers, we love to be creative and we love to innovate, and that's good sometimes, but sometimes it's not very useful. And when it comes to the web, every one of us is using website and browsing website all day long. So we know how that works, and we have certain expectations of how things should work. So when you're a designer and you're trying to reinvent the wheel, sometimes it just creates more confusion than helpful, than being helpful. So you need to basically understand like what are the best practices and how things work. And there's a great book called "Don't Make Me Think" that basically kind of gives you kind of pointers about what you should or shouldn't do. But you need to understand basically the medium in which you're working on. So that was basically step one. And step one, as I said, is dealing with the content. And the outcome of this step is you need to have something that's like wireframes. Now you get started with, you can see the image above, it's kind of like what's called a low fidelity wireframes, which basically kind of depicts the structure of the website. So we're going to have a page about this and a page about this, and it's going to have this and that content. That helps you kind of, facilitate the discussion with your clients about, are we going in the right direction? And then you create like more high fidelity wireframes, which is basically just kind of like gray, black and white, kind of like the content inside, but you don't put colors in it. You don't put visuals in it. You just want to see that the content is structured the right way. And you don't use colors because you don't want them to talk about design. You just want them to approve and see that the content is accurate. So you use this is basically a tool to collaborate and get approval, these wireframes.
Right.
All right. So
Ron, I wanted to jump in
Yeah.
there. On the image there at the top, you also had, what do you call that? The sitemap, right? On the top, right?
So you can call it a sitemap, or flow chart or whatever, but this is basically just means it's kind of a high-level look at the website, right? You basically would have that also on the one below, which is just like a higher fidelity one, which also includes kind of like the real text. And by the way, when I do this, I actually write the text myself. I'm not a copywriter, I'm not even a native English speaker, but I put something there to try to help them tell the story. And when there's something on the table, even if it's crappy, it's good to get feedback. So I put the first version, and it really helps them to iterate on it and improve on it, rewrite it. I think it's much, much better than just, I see some designers are doing kind of using like lorem ipsum, which really, the client can't really understand what you're trying to do here. What's the story? And even when later on, you're going to need to create visuals here. How are you going to know what to visualize if there's no text, right? So I suggest you get down to real actual text that tells the story. Again, it doesn't have to be final, but you should really try to put this in at this point.
Right.
Okay. Are you guys ready to move to the next step?
We are.
Yes. Thank you.
All right. Okay. So step number 2, how do we actually design this? How do we make this look great? So I get started by asking the question, like, what is the best, let's call this art vehicle to reach our goal, right? And this is pretty much similar to what you guys are doing with the stylescapes. Basically, I want to show the client different approaches to things that might work and try to see together with them. Again, it's a discussion. What might be the best fit for their goal? Now, I think that it's very important to show many different styles. And I think a lot of designers are opting to what they would call my style, which is basically what they know what to do. And that's not necessarily the best thing to solve the client's, to help the client reach his goals and to best communicate. So I try to show everything, even stuff that I don't know how to do myself. Illustration, 3D, photography, typographic, whatever. And I use a website called Lapa Ninja, which is basically just a collection of a lot of landing pages, and it's really always updated. So I always go there, collect reference, like throw them into maybe folders like 3D illustrations, photography, whatever, to collect references, and then we use this kind of as a discussion to where we want to go with the website. So that's basically the first step. Now, based on the decision that we make here, I usually collaborate with other creatives. Now, and this is a photo of Radim Olinik, which is an awesome art director from London, which I just really recently collaborated with, because honestly, you can't master every possible style, right? You can't do it all yourself. And so to really get the best results for your clients, you need to have kind of a network, and you need to have friends or people that you work with that are very good at specific things that you want to collaborate with. So you might call it subcontractors or whatever, or freelancers, but basically for me, it's basically a network of friends that I know that every one of them is good with something else, and we work together on project depending what is the best thing for the client. And again, I don't try to do everything myself because that's not necessarily going to be the best thing for the client. All right, the next step is talking about typography and grid and kind of stuff like that. Now, on the image on the right is a Google search when I write free UI kit, because there's just tons and tons of actually really great stuff there. And I kind of look at it as kind of like an open source for designers. So open source, if you don't know, kind of in the development world, there's a lot of projects which is called open source, which means that people put them out there for other people to take them and reuse or use them as kind of a starter point for their own project. And designers are starting to get into that with UI kits. So you can find really, for whatever software you use, you can find really, really great UI kits, which are basically a starting point. They already set the typography with, different sizes in a way that makes sense. They created the grid for you. Now you're going to take this, you're probably not going to use it as is, right? You're going to change to your own typeface for the project. So you're going to need to make a little bit of adjustments to the sizes and to the grid and everything. But it's a great starting point. And I think a lot of designers are so overwhelmed by trying to think about everything themselves. And you don't really need to do that. You can get started with, kind of a library that sets the general structure and work on that. Use that as a starting point and just go from there. I think that would really, really simplify it. Now, next point on that is there's something that's called accessibility, which basically means that, some people have disabilities of all kinds, and like some people don't see well, some people don't see colors well, and we need to take that into consideration when we're designing. So I'm not going to cover everything, but I think there's a really great post by Pablo Stanley, which is called "Designing for Accessibility is Not That Hard," and basically he covers the key principles which you should go through before you finalize your design. And it's things like you need to have enough contrast in your colors so that people can actually see what you did there. We designers, we like the subtle gray font that turns out that people over the age of 23 can't really see. So we need to take care of that. So just read this. It's a one pass. It's pretty short, and you're gonna see it's not such a mess, but you need to think about this. Now, the most common question that I get all the time is like, what tool should I choose? And there's now so many tools for designing for screens. There's Sketch, Figma, XD Studio, and every day a new tool is coming out. And people obsess over this as if they just got the right tool, now they're going to have an amazing website. But honestly, guys, they're all the same. I mean, some things it's just like tiny features. Okay. But it doesn't matter. Don't overthink about this. And all of these tools are, if you already know Photoshop or InDesign or Illustrator, those are much heavier tools than those tools which are basically you're drawing up rectangulars, you're giving them rounded corners, You're throwing in images and that's it. Like it's a no-brainer. So just pick one. Whether it is, if you're on Adobe, you're going to get XD for free, or if you're on whatever, choose one of them. If you want collaboration, go with Figma, but it doesn't really matter. So don't get stuck there. You can just move forward, get the design ready. All right. Are you ready for step 3?
Yes, we are.
All right. So technology. So I think it's really important to understand the medium for which you're designing for and what are the capabilities. I always think that, you can't really, if you're a print designer and you don't know the difference between, what's RGB and CMYK, you're going to be really disappointed when you use that shiny green color and it's not going to print that way because, hey, you can't really print RGB colors. So you need to understand what's possible. So one thing that you want to do, and because the web is always developing in such a fast pace, you always want to stay up to date. And you can browse websites like awards or code drops or CodePen, which basically shows you what are the latest kind of like experiments or cutting edge innovation that are possible for the web. And I know I've heard or I saw Ben's tweet awards where he was like, dude, those websites are so unpractical. And it's true, but you don't have to design them like this, but you need to know that it's possible to create this animation. It's possible to do this effect because you might want to use it at some point. So you just know what's possible. So just educate yourself by browsing and by looking what other people are doing. Now, the second thing is, again, as I talked about, the difference between RGB and CMYK, you need to understand key concepts. Now, let me super quickly go through key concept of the web. So websites are built from HTML pages. That's basically the content, right? Actually, what we talked about in step 1. It's basically like the texts and the how this is structured. CSS, which stands for cascading style sheets, is basically styles, and basically it's very, very similar to InDesign or any other design software where you have a style name like big title, and there's a definition like, okay, a big title is always black, 37 pixels, and this font, and so forth. So this is basically the definition of how everything on the HTML looks like. That's basically how the structure works. Now, the main difference between how designers usually think about their designs and how it's really implemented on the web is that there's a mental frame or mental concept. I don't remember how to say this, but basically it's called the box model. And the box model, when we designers use design software to design, we're used to layers, right? You have a stack of layers, and basically it means what's on the top is on the top and what's at the bottom is on the bottom, right? That's how it's stacked together. But on the web, when things are dynamic, the screen sizes change and there's relationships, what actually happens is that it's not something on top of something, it's actually a box within a box within a box. So everything that you see on a page is actually a box that has some properties, those CSS properties that we talked about. Like this box has a red background and all the texts in it are, green, this sort of font. And inside of it, so this box might be, let's say, a section. Inside of it, there might be another box which says, this is a button, for example. And so you need to understand how this model works so you can define, the spacing and how it reacts when the screen size changes. So that's kind of like a different mental model that you should get yourself familiar with. It's really, again, not that difficult, but it's just a different way of thinking that you need to read. Now, basically one of the last things that you need to consider is, not everybody has the same screen. Obviously, mobile, everybody is designing for mobile. And actually what you see on the right is actually Facebook on what's called today a dumb phone, which is what a lot of people in the world are actually using. So not like we take smartphones for granted, but it's not the case for everybody. But what I put this for here is that you need to understand that, not everybody has the same screen. So if the colors look beautiful on your screen, doesn't mean that everybody's going to see it that way. Not everybody has the same internet speed. So you need to think about that. Some people are going to be on older browsers, which might not support everything. So you have a little bit of considerations to do. And again, it really depends on who are you designing for, and who your clients, customers are. So that's kind of things that you should think about. And obviously, be sure to test it on relevant devices before you're going live. So basically, the last thing, now that you have the design ready, is now you need to think about what's the next step. Like, how do I take this beautiful design that I did? How do I get this to a live website? And basically, you have a few options to do with that. So the first one, and I've been spending a lot of time in that quarter, a lot of my career, I've used to outsource my work to developers. I used to send them the design and they would design it, they would develop it. Each one of these options obviously has pros and cons. So when you're outsourcing to a developer, one of the cons is you don't have to do it yourself, right? So that's something good. Con of this is that, first of all, it costs a lot of money. So sometimes it gets up to like 50% of the cost of the website. Sometimes even more just goes to the developer for building the website.
Right.
And also communication, like explaining to them, no, this is not what I meant. This is not how I want things to animate. This takes you a lot of time, which again, time is money. The second one is that you can do it yourself, and there's a lot of possibilities today. There's tools like Wix and Squarespace. There's plugins for WordPress. Elementor is one of them. There's another one that's called Divi. And those solutions, the good thing about them is that they allow you to do it yourself. So you don't have to depend on a developer to do them. They're also relatively, I would say, easy to learn. So it's kind of like, I would say, for dummies, but a lot of them were actually designed not for designers. They were actually designed for clients to do the work themselves, so that you don't have to know about anything. Now, the problem with those solutions is that you're kind of limited because you're working within templates. So basically, they kind of designed more or less components for you, and you have to work within them. So if that fits your design, that's good and well. But if that's not what you wanted to achieve, then you're kind of in a problem here. It's kind of limiting for you. Now, the third option, which is obviously my favorite, or not obviously, but it is my favorite, is Webflow, which is basically a development tool that was built for designers. So you actually do the development yourself without writing code. Now, the good thing about that is, first of all, you don't have to depend on a developer, so you don't have to pay somebody else. And usually the time that it would just take you to communicate is the time that you're actually getting the site done. So it helps you make more money. You're now going to charge for the development, and you save up time. Mm-hmm. The con of this, or why this is hard for a lot of designers, is that there's a learning curve here, and it takes time to learn this because you need to understand all those mental models that I've mentioned earlier. You need to learn how to think like a developer to understand how to do it yourself and how to do it efficiently. So that's kind of like why it's hard for some designers. But obviously, I'm a very big advocate for them. I've been working with them for like almost 4 years now. It's literally changed my freelance career. So I'm a big fan of this option. Mm-hmm. But whatever you choose, I think the most important thing is you just get started, because don't leave money on the table. Just like, and as I said before, there's just like every business in the world needs a website. Every business in the world needs their website updated consistently. So that's a good opportunity to do interesting work, to do retainer work, to bring a lot of value to your clients. So just get started.
Hey, that was fantastic.
I think I'm done.
Yes, very good job. Yeah. Okay. I felt like I learned some things.
Was valuable.
No, it was. And just as a little personal story, because you guys might think, okay, so Ron loves Webflow, so of course all roads lead to Webflow. But Ben Burns, leading our digital web team and the marketing team, has evaluated many different options, and we now have fallen in love with Webflow, and we've used Webflow to develop sites for Hamilton Brewery.
Yeah, that's right.
So that ties into building a brand, the series. So people who are fans of that, who have gone to their website, that's a Webflow site.
Right.
And the future site is going to be a Webflow site. So this is like exciting things. And we're hearing from the people who are using it, there is a learning curve, but it's not steep. It's not horrible. It's a couple of weeks worth of work to figure it out. then there are at least 3 members of our team who are already using Webflow who aren't even, say, classically trained as web designers.
Right.
So it's a pretty fantastic tool.
They don't have any coding backgrounds. They're just visual designers.
Visual designers doing the coding work. And I do want to share some of the pain points before we open it up to questions. So I'm prompting Matthew to get ready with the questions for you, Ron, from people who are watching and tuning in live, saying hello to everybody, is that I feel the pain because when I was getting started and doing web design, I didn't know half of what you know now, but I would hand it off to developer. And the pain points that you talk about are really true. I want to spend a moment here to talk about that. And that's probably one of the reasons why some designers don't get into web design, because we can design it, we can think through the problem, but then there's this technology gap, and then we outsource it, and then there's all this frustration, like I don't know if I'm overselling or underselling something, if I'm being overcharged or undercharged, I just don't know. I have no control over it. And this very thing did happen to us. We outsource our coding, almost all of it, the development, and some developers were really slow in getting back to us, and it was creating some tension between us and the client, because at this point it was in the hands of somebody else and we couldn't make it go faster. We couldn't make it more high fidelity, or we couldn't control all those things. And I'm not saying I'm a control freak, because I would love to just give it to other people, but they're not mind readers. There's a gap there. And so there's definite pain.
So, and honestly, I've been talking with, I have a few friends who own agencies, big agencies here in Israel. And so it actually splits into people who have totally given up on this because of this struggle, and 2, people who are doing this, but they're actually losing money.
Yeah.
So they're like, I'm gonna do their website just because it's part of what the contract is. If I want to get this branding, and I'm gonna make the money back on the branding, but actually, if you kind of like calculate the money on the web design project, they lost money on that project, and you know they're losing money on it just to get the clients, but they're losing money. And basically, I've helped a few agencies turn things around by training their teams with Webflow and helping them do it in-house, and it came back into being a profit center.
Okay, let's jump to the questions. There's a very active chat going on right now. I'm having a hard time keeping up. So Matthew, what kind of questions should we elevate to the top?
Yeah, I think one big one that is, because in our audience we have designers and some people who are really deep into web design and development. Ron, do you have a stance on what something like Webflow is really good for? Like the types of sites that it's really good for versus things it might not be good for?
Okay, so I think like the ideal use case, at least for me, is I think it's being called as a marketing website. So a company has a website that tells about the company, whether it is a tech company or a restaurant or whatever, every business, the business website. I think that's the ideal use case. Obviously, there's blogging platform on it, so you can create content websites on it. There's now e-commerce, so you can create e-commerce website on it. But I think that the core strength is for basically business websites. Now, what I don't think it's ideal for is a lot of people confuse actually web apps and websites. So let's take an example. Like when you book flights online, you feel like you're browsing a website. You're actually using an app. You're performing searches. You have a booking system. You're maybe integrated with few different websites to pull data from. You're actually using an app. And so a lot of people are trying to use Webflow to build apps, and it's not, you can make it do it, you can hack it your way through, but it's not ideal. People who are trying to build kind of like maybe subscription websites or portals where you have users and passwords and user management, all that type of stuff, you can do that by integrating third-party services, but that's not like the ideal use case, I would say.
Okay, yeah, that's super helpful.
I have a question for you. Why do you say that the ideal website to build is a marketing site?
Because it has it has almost no logic to it. Again, coming back to like what's called backend, in development, where you need to have the server performs, whatever calculations, manage a database or something like that. Again, you can and should use the CMS, which is content management system, but which is basically databases, but it's basically a website that is most of it content. And then this content is designed using, front-end development. The back-end is pretty lean, let's say. Mm-hmm. And the core use of that is what I call marketing website. But that's basically, I would say, like 80 to 90% of the websites on Earth,
Right.
Mm-hmm. I see what you're saying. And you have several years of experience designing and then now also building websites. Just for us to kind of get a sense of budgets, when we say we're leaving money on the table by not offering our clients to design and build their website, what kind of budget ranges can we expect for these marketing sites that you're talking about?
So obviously you know that your budget really depends on who the client is, but just
right.
like the recent example of the website that I did, and I did a case study on this on my website, that was $25,000 of a website. Mm-hmm. All right. Mm-hmm. So I did, as I've mentioned, I've collaborated with 3D artists to do an animation for me, so that's not all profit, but most of it is profit. Mm-hmm. And this is, yeah. So, but that's the type of clients that I work with. I work with tech companies. So that's the budget. That's the range of budgets that I work with. I can tell you that most of my students, right? So I have now 1,000 students in my Webflow Masterclass course. Mm-hmm. I would say from what I hear and talk to people that the typical average budget ranges between maybe $5,000 to $10,000 of what, I see my students are doing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
for a site, let's just say 10,000 so we can keep the numbers round here. Yeah. For a site that's $10,000, how much of that would you have had to spend having a developer make, you think?
At least 50%.
Okay, at least 5.
At least.
Yeah. Okay.
That's awesome.
I just had lunch with the agency owner friend that I had like a couple of weeks ago, and he told me and they're now working with Webflow. But specifically on this one big website that they had, the client insisted that after they build it with Webflow, it will be translated to WordPress. And wow. He told me that the developer charged $20,000 for just translate. They already built the front end in Webflow and they exported the code for them. So just plugging that code into WordPress costed them $20,000. To me, that's like craziness, but oh well.
Wow. Ron, yeah. There was a question that had come up here in the chat, and this is from Franjo Stochik. And he asked, I'm scared that demand for web design might go down just with all of these tools making it easier and easier. What does that trend look like to you? Do you feel like web design is actually growing in terms of needs for clients, or is it shrinking because it's getting saturated?
Okay, so my feeling about this is true basically for a lot of the design world. It's not only website, it's true for branding and for and marketing design as well. I would say that if there was a pyramid, let's say, of high-level designers, mid-level designers, and low-level designers, my feeling is that the middle is getting squeezed out by those new technological tools, right? So now clients can design websites or buy a template. They can also go to a website like Tailor Brand or whatever and have their logo made in like 15 seconds for $100. So those are, and my feeling is that these tools are hurting the middle of the market, the middle of the market. But so there will always be demand at the top, right? There will always be people who need premium brand, premium websites, premium design in general, right? But the truth is that the majority of the people in the world are bad businesses, bad brands, bad whatever, everything. So I feel like there's more opportunities at the top now, but some of them are dropping to the bottom. That's true. And I think that you as a designer have to make the move to make sure that you're going up and you can't stay in the middle anymore. That's what I think. You have to start moving upwards and bring more value and have to be premium, because you can't be average anymore. Nobody needs average. You can get average for $50 now. Average, like the $50 is very, very good in terms of it's good. It's average good,
right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have to bring strategic value, I think. And it's true for branding. It's true for web design. And that's why a lot of the value is not only in the execution, it's a lot in the initial stages of the strategy and what are we even going to do with the website and what are we even going to put there and how are we going to structure this, and and when you are designing, it's not just, hey, let's grab some $10 stock photos, let's do something creative. Either we go illustrate or we go do something 3D or we go do a creative photo shoot, but you need to do something that's worth standing out,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I have a question for you, because we've been following what you've been doing for some time now, and you said that you have 1,000 students in your Webflow masterclass, and that primarily is a class to teach you how to use Webflow, how to make money off of it, and how to connect it to design. Are you going to start teaching people how to design the front part and connect it to the technology part? Because you said there's 3 parts, right? Content, basically design and technology. So as far as I understand, the Webflow masterclass is the technology component. Are you developing something to handle the second part, the design? Because that's where a lot of our community is coming from.
Just next, I wanted to say next month, but it turns out that next month is next week.
Right.
So next week, I'm starting work on my new course, which would be about web design in general, which is actually going to be, I think it's going to be 1, 2, 3, because Webflow is only part of the execution. And I'm teaching people how to use Webflow, but I'm not teaching them how to think about interactions, how to think about what to do with the technology. So I think that that new course, I'm aiming to cover 1, 2, 3. So that and basically I'm doing that because that's one of the most common thing that I hear from my students. They're like, yes, now I can build websites, but now I want to build better websites because I also want to move up to that premium, premium place where I can charge $10,000 plus for a website. And I want to know how to bring that value, that unique value.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. So did we get a sneak peek, or at least the outline of what it is that you're going to be teaching in this design class?
I think that was when I created that presentation, I was like, I think this is a good framework to think about the course.
Right.
Honestly, I'll only start next week. But so I didn't have time to spend on thinking about the structure yet. But when I was preparing for this talk, I kind of came up with this structure. And I think it makes sense to think about it this way. Mm-hmm. Obviously, there's things like, how to manage the client relationship and how to manage the project and all sorts of stuff that we didn't cover today, which probably I'll cover. But I think when it comes to the design itself, I think that's what you need to understand. You need to know how to create good content and structure it correctly in a useful and meaningful way. And then you need to know how to design it visually to make it beautiful, appealing, unique. And then think about how are you going to develop it.
Yeah. I want to address a comment from one of our, I think, long time and very loyal followers or subscribers to our channel, Tony Alves. He says, I love Ron, but There's always a but in the I love statement. I love Ron, but I'm a developer and I'm feeling some bad vibes with this discussion. Do agree about the apps, but there are better ways and options for making sites. Now, let's address this comment, and I'm going to take a stab at it first. Ron is really speaking to designers, not developers. And he already told you guys that webflow is a tool specifically built for designers to cross that digital divide, the coding divide, if you will, to help you kind of bridge that gap. And it may be threatening to some developers, like they don't need them anymore. That'll also cause developers to level up and go up and not give average. But I think for people like Tony who want deeper stuff, don't worry about it. This is not a discussion or a talk that's designed for you per se. You want to add to that, Ron?
Yeah. So a few weeks ago, I went to Kiev, Ukraine, to do a team training for an agency to teach their designers how to use Webflow. And basically, this agency does a lot of landing pages and stuff like that. And right now, their process is they would design it, and then it would take 4 days from the day when they finish the design to when they'll put it live by working with developers. And I told them, guys, you can do it in 1 hour. And so they brought me there, and I was there training the designers, but the front-end developers were in the room as well. And to kind of see what this is and everything. Now, I could see on their eyes and in their questions that they are scared, and being scared sometimes lead to being angry.
Yeah.
But I think basically you said it, and I said it even earlier. Right. These tools are going to make average not necessary. And when it comes to website, the front end development, 85, I would say to 90% of the websites on earth requires average capabilities. 10% of them requires unique development that you cannot do with Webflow, or that you have to extend it using custom code.
Right.
Like, I would think that a brand like Nike, perhaps, maybe, just an example, that does custom crazy shit that is, you would see on a Word because it is cutting edge and doing some like stuff that, Webflow might create a feature for that next year. But first, somebody needs to show that it's feasible before Webflow is going to build that feature. So somebody's going to be at the cutting edge of development. And to be in the cutting edge of development, you need custom development. So if you're a developer, you'd want to be in the cutting edge of development. In the upper, just like I said for designers, you're going to be at the top, the premium. And you're going to do the high value, unique work. There's no use for you to do the average work, because if there are developers listening, so there's, something that's called Flexbox, which is kind of a layout property of CSS. Now, to write that, it would require like 10 lines to write how you want to position something. And you can do that in Webflow with 3 clicks. So you can't beat me on that. You can't write the 10 lines faster than I click 3 buttons. You just can't. But there's no use for you to do that.
Right.
So I'm not saying you don't need developers. I'm saying for a lot of things, you don't need developers. But for some things, you definitely need. And
Wait a minute. You just said, I'm not saying you don't need developers. You're saying you don't need developers. And then 1 second later, you're like, but you don't need developers.
No.
I know. I'm just having fun with you.
For a lot of things, you don't need developers.
Yes.
Okay? And I've used developers for a lot of Webflow websites to extend capabilities and to create something that even Webflow can't do.
Right.
But that was really simple. I was like, I need this one tiny hack, and then they would solve it in an hour. But it's just when you need it. You don't always need it. You don't just do things because that's how you used to do things like 10 years ago or something.
Yes. So let me channel my inner Yoda. Let me channel my inner Yoda and say, fear leads to anger, and anger leads to dark side. Okay, so you guys that are afraid, let's look at this. When desktop publishing was invented as a viable solution for the mass market, it put a lot of typesetters out of business. Right? And when the laser printer was invented, it put the dot matrix printer out of business, and the dot matrix printer put the daisy wheel printer out of business. So there's a jump, and every time there's a technology push, you got to just jump to the next thing. Guy Kawasaki calls it jumping the curve. That's how you innovate. So technology displaces people. It's happening all the time. Think about the things that you don't have to do anymore because of technological advances. When was the last time you went into the field and planted your own food and harvested it? When was the last time you went into the field and hunted for an animal to then have protein to eat? Well, technology is displacing lots of things. So I think we just got to learn to go for it, because change is inevitable, but progress is a choice. So you guys, let's just get to it. Let's get to it, people. If you're watching the future, it's not called watching the past. It's called the future. So let's think about where we're going. That's it.
Jayden, that's a cut down.
Bang.
Just all right.
Boom.
All right.
Yeah. All right. Okay. That's it.
I wanna go back to the questions, because there's a couple that are popping up.
Yes, there are.
So I wanted to ask, because we were just talking about features, like you said, the Flexbox. Niora asked a while ago, what about integrating animations? Can you talk to us about some of the fancy features that are built into Webflow that make it very easy to make these gorgeous looking sites?
So basically, you could do. Well, I don't know. I want to say you can do everything, but you can do, if you're if you know what CSS animation is, which is basically animating the properties. So animating position, scale, rotation, all of that stuff that you can do really, really fast and natively. So you can create those animation very, very fast. Up until now, one thing that is very, very common in recent years, it's called SVG animation.
Mm-hmm.
You might know that when you're in a website and you see the illustration drawing themselves, you see the line drawing themselves and something like that, which is basically just there's a vector and there's, the stroke is going through it or something like that. So basically there's something that's called Lottie. It's a bit technical, but it's something that was developed by Airbnb that basically allows you to export animation from After Effects into code, if those are vector animations, and then you can use it in a website to animate, the illustration. And to integrate that into Webflow, it would require a little bit of hacking. It's possible, but it requires a little bit of hacking.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but just yesterday I got an email from the guys at Webflow.
Hold on. Where's my breaking news music? Hold on, give me a second. I'm freaking out here. I can't find it. Never mind. Just do your thing, dude. I was going to do breaking news. Go ahead.
Anyway. Yeah, I already have the beta of how you do this integration now natively. So I'm gonna play with this next week. I didn't experiment with that, but now it's about to be super simple as well to integrate Lottie animation, which was something that's really, really a lot of people were excited about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's going to be easy peasy.
There was a question here, Matthew, that you can answer for us. Somebody was asking about how long it took to develop the Hamilton Brewery site.
Yeah. So we had our intern do it. I'm serious.
Wait. We're not supposed to admit this. We had a high-level, highly paid designer do this. Go ahead.
3 days.
It took her 3 days to build?
From scratch.
From scratch.
And she doesn't have any coding background.
So there you go. 3 days.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
the intern.
Yeah,
3 days for the intern.
That's right. And we're gonna get more into that in the series, as you'll see. But it's pretty interesting.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
That's how easy it is. Like you said, it's very much like Photoshop. So I'm just watching our designers play with this. I haven't touched it myself, but I watch them do it. It's like, oh, that's it. You just click, and then things are animating. Things have parallax, and it's beautiful. It's gorgeous. Gosh dang.
Okay, so we're coming up on an hour here on the show. What kind of things do we need to hit before we end the show, Matthew?
Let's see. I mean, a lot of these are like technical Webflow questions. I just wanted to talk about maybe some people have concerns about the hosting on Webflow, or like how do you deal with clients? And I know Webflow is actually have thought a lot about these things and how to address them. So maybe, Ron, if you want to quickly talk about hosting, because from our experience, it's lightning fast.
Yeah. So I love hosting with Webflow, but I do agree, and I've had the experience as well, that some clients don't want, for several of reasons, they might not want to host with Webflow. Some of those reasons can be they want to host it on their servers, might be, I don't know, security, might be they want to connect it to some kind of a backend, might be that they want to, whatever, for several reasons.
Right.
And in this case, Webflow allows you to export the code, and then you can do whatever you want with it. I usually try to discourage clients from this, but again, at the end of the day, it's the client's position, it's their website, and they get to make the decision. So either if they need to export, they export. If they need to translate the Webflow website to something like WordPress, that's also possible. But again, the reasons why I usually try to tell them that it's a good idea is that it makes future update and maintenance super, super fast, seamless, which usually saves them money. The content management system, which is how they update the website, is like top notch, which is what a lot of clients are frustrated when it comes to WordPress websites.
Yes.
Speed wise, a lot of clients are just, they have some kind of a hosting at whatever, GoDaddy or something, and Webflow websites are hosted on Amazon, top of the line with most expensive, most fast, whatever servers. So it's good, it's scalable, it's dependable. So that's how I usually explain it.
Yeah, and I wanted to share our experience too, like handing off Webflow sites to clients. It's been pretty fantastic to see that. I think in the past when we were using WordPress sites, it would take hours to train them. I was like, here's the back end, and if you want to update this, you go here and you do this drop down and you click here. And it's like multiple steps to show them.
It's not that intuitive.
It's not that intuitive. It's kind of wonky because we're always hacking it to make it look good, right? Use lots of plugins to make it look good. Versus Webflow, because it's like a visual designer, it's very easy for them to just click on something, update the type, and then it's done, and it's already published, and that's it. It's one click for them, and it's been pretty amazing to see that training process shrink down so significantly for our clients. The handoff process is.
Well, I want to read another comment here because there's another developer in the group. Unfortunately, the name is so hard for me to pronounce. I think it's called Elbitamo. But this person is saying, I'm a developer and I think it's great because I know its limitations and what can be done as an actual developer. This is exactly how you use tools. You don't fight it, you use it, and then you either create custom code or you hack it or you push it beyond its initial conception, which I think that's the way you do it. All right. What else, Matthew? What else do we need to talk about?
I think a lot of those are the major ones. I think, Ron, if people want to continue learning Webflow, could you talk to our audience about your course? Because I think you have a very unique positioning for your course, and maybe could you illuminate that for us?
Right. Okay. So basically, I used Webflow myself, again, from the initial early beta of Webflow. And so I started using it when it was relatively simple, and then it expanded. But I always thought, if I could learn it myself, probably everybody can learn it themselves. And actually, Webflow themselves have an amazing, Webflow University. So they put up a lot of videos. And still, I was getting tons and tons of questions about how to do things and how to work with clients and how to take the process from start to finish to actually building it. And so I think that when I've built my course, I was more focused on the real process that I use with clients, and not just because I think that a lot of the videos that Webflow are doing are they're great technical videos. They're like how to use a specific feature. But what I found out that most people struggle with is how do you actually think about this? And how do you go from start to finish, from planning it to what are the first steps, to how do you hand it off to a client? How do you work with it? How do you do the training? How do you explain the pros, the cons? How do you deal with the hosting? What happens? Obviously, Webflow are not going to teach you how to convert it to WordPress because it's, against their religion, which is okay, against my religion as well. But, I have to deal with the limitations of a real world designer that actually works with it for client work. And have to deal with the limitations that, sometimes things are not perfect. Sometimes you need to hack them. Sometimes you need to do things that way. Or there's a faster way to do things or a more efficient way to do things. So I think that's what I tried to achieve with the course. And from the comments and feedback that I get from my students, a lot of them have seen the free videos, but they just wanted a shortcut. They wanted to spend even a weekend and bam, being able to build their own website or a client website or take on a project. And we have an amazing supportive community that helps you solve problems, that shares client work, that shares projects. So it's been incredible. I think, yeah.
Okay. I want to tell you guys a little personal story, and then I think I know how to wrap up the show today, okay? Here's the personal story. My son comes in to work with me from time to time. He's 12 years old. And yesterday I told him, go clean up the stage. And at the end of the day, he came home with me. He's like, Dad, I'm so tired. I don't know why I'm so tired. It's like, well, you were up all day and you were working and it was a little bit of work. He's like, no, Dad. So how long did you take to clean up the stage? He said, 1 hour. So hard. And I'm sweeping the floor. I'm disinfecting surfaces. I'm spraying Febreze as I was instructed and wiping down the walls. It's a lot of work for this little boy. And he was like, it was hot in there, Dad. And I said, well, that's what you get for doing manual labor. Because prior to this time, he's been thinking when he comes of age and he's able to work, he's going to go and work at McDonald's because he thinks it's going to be easy. I said, well, working for your dad and cleaning up the stage is nothing compared to working for McDonald's. You're going to be over the hot burner of probably the frying station or something like that. And then he's like, why is everybody at the office using Webflow? And can I build a website using Webflow? And I said, yeah, you can. Why don't you watch tutorials and learn how to do it? People are saying it's relatively easy to do and you can charge your friends how to do this. And in fact, we know people who need websites built that can probably do it that can probably afford like $1,500, $2,000 that you could do as a kid. As a 12-year-old kid, you can build a website for somebody because they need this thing done. Your friends need this. People need this. And he's like, wow. So yesterday I made $5 working for an hour, sweating, just grinding away at it. And you're saying I can make $1,500? And he's like, but what if I'm not that good? What if I'm just not that excellent? Well, okay, that's a problem. If you're not that good, then you'll just suck and nobody will hire you. Why you even ask that kind of question? You have to be good. So here's what I think. Let's say you're a designer and you don't want to do Webflow and you're just really reluctant, but at least now you're going to start selling websites as part of the services you provide. You can team up with another designer who's pretty good at Webflow and help you make this. Maybe that's a bridge, or you can learn it yourself. That's entirely up to you. What we try to do here at The Futur is we try to teach people and share with them as many options and avenues as we can, knowing that for some it won't work and for some it'll be like what they needed to hear today, because they keep saying that I needed to hear this today. So if you're stuck, if you're backed into a place and you feel like selling a logo is just not going to be enough and you need to do more, but you're afraid of the technology, I encourage you, just give it a peek. Take a look. What I love about your community, Ron, is that you talk a lot about website and web design and how to make money doing that and managing projects. And then there's our community, and the two communities come together to make a beautiful child called Getting Started in Web Design in 3 Easy Steps. And I love it. You gave me a really high level overview of web design, and I learned some things today. And I'm an old dude, and if I can learn something, this is good. I'm like really old. Thanks everybody for saying how young I look. Thank you very much. No. It's enough, please. But I love it. Thank you very much.
Love it.
So we want to encourage you guys that are Webflow curious for you to experiment. It's okay. You can dabble in it. It's all okay. And if you want to take the class, you can tell like Ron's a really good teacher. He's very passionate, and he backs us up with real life, real world experience. He's not some kind of hack. He's not some academic person who's like, yeah, here's a good theory. He's actually done these things. And so you want to take it from him. But I just want to tell you, take his class, But use our link. Use our link below. Please use our link. And that's all. That's all we got, man. So, Ron, thank you very much for coming on the show. Do we have any last questions? Or are we going to say goodbye?
No.
Thank you,
I
Pat.
think
All right,
that's good.
everybody, please
All right.
help me thank Ron Segall for coming on the show, guys.
Thank you, guys.
All right, we'll get out of here with some music. Thank you very much. Woo!